This episode is brought to you by the Madison Community Foundation. Even if you don't recognize that name, you will definitely recognize their impact. Through donations from people like you, Madison Community Foundation helped fund the creation of the Monona Terrace, the expansion of the Goodman Community Center, and the Madison Central Library. And their community impact grants support hundreds of local nonprofits. When planning your year-end giving, visit madisongives.org to donate. Start a donor-advised fund or leave a legacy with Madison Community Foundation. Kick off the holiday season early this year with the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra's performance of Handel's Messiah. Written in just 24 days, don't miss your chance to experience the most performed classical piece of music worldwide. Make it your new favorite holiday tradition and join the WCO and the Festival Choir of Madison at Bethel Lutheran Church on November 22nd and 23rd at 7 p.m. Tickets are available at wcoconcerts.org/Messiah. Today on City Cast Madison. It's Tuesday, so that means it's time for another Must See Madison. What marks a city outside of its people more than its architecture? As the winter months send us indoors and outside our windows we see drab and dreary landscapes, where are Madison's most interesting buildings to appreciate and spend time in? What are our most inspired buildings? The City Cast Madison team, all bona fide Madisonians and armchair architects, weigh in with our top picks, from oldest to newest buildings, and we threw in some wild cards. It's Tuesday, November 19th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome back to another installment of Must See Madison. And this is the times when we give you places you really should check out around our beautiful city. The weird, the bad, the ugly. We're doing a roundup of our favorite buildings in Madison. And we're coming with some hot ones. I'm here with Haley Sperling, our executive producer. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca. I'm excited to talk about buildings. There's so many good ones. This list was hard for me to narrow down.
It genuinely was. And we're here with also Rob Thomas, our newsletter editor. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Bianca. Buildings, we love them. We can't live without them.
Yeah,
so true.
It's so true. I mean, if everyone could understand that, we'd get further on some of our other issues.
I think so.
Well, we've got some buildings to admire, and I'm pretty sure, Haley, you're starting us out.
I will start us off. Yes. So to put into context, we all broke it down by our best old building, best new building, and then a wild card. And the wild card is just kind of like any building that you just want to talk about for fun, because why not? There's, like I said, there are so many good ones. And we defined old as anything built before 1990. And also to note, we're leaving out the state capitol because we had this conversation before. We also left out the Capitol, and it's just like, it's been done. We could do like 3 episodes on the Capitol.
We're embarrassed of it.
No, I love the Capitol building, but it's just like, it's been done. It's been done. Yeah. It's beaten like a dead horse. I'm over it. And like I said, kicking it off with best old buildings. And right off the bat, I am breaking my own rule that I just laid out very nicely. Because
Wait a
technically, this building opened in the late 90s, but it has been in the works and it has been a concept since the 1930s. I am talking about none other than the Monona Terrace.
Oh.
But yes, I love the Monona Terrace. And like I said, this building, while it technically opened in 1997, its history dates back to the 1930s, so I think we can call it old enough. Monona Terrace, it was pitched and designed by Wisconsin Golden Boy. We love him. We love to hate on him. There's probably a couple of problematic things going on in there. But pitched and designed by Frank Lloyd Wright back in 1938. And initially, when Wright pitched this project, the county board rejected this plan by just one single vote, according to Wikipedia. And then Wright went on to seek support for the plan and alter its design. He really, really wanted to make this happen up until his death in 1959. And it wasn't until the 90s that his dream was realized, thanks to none other than Madison's golden boy, Paul Soglin. So it's funny because the arguments against the Monona Terrace are pretty similar to arguments that people use to reject new development today. The costs were too high for taxpayers to bear. Construction would adversely affect the environment. People were really worried, God forbid, that the lake views from the Capitol would be blocked. Sound familiar, right? But in 1997, nearly 60 years after Wright's original concept, the Monona Terrace Community and Convention Center opened its doors. And this building, I love this building because its beauty to me really lies in its subtlety. Like, you can really only see it fully from afar. Depending on where you stand, you might just see slabs of concrete, or you could see full windows. But inside, the views are sweeping, the rooftop is amazing, and there are details everywhere that make this building like truly, truly special. The big one that I think about is the carpet. Do you guys know the story of the Monona Terrace carpet?
No, hit it, because I have thoughts.
So the carpet, it was designed by the late Anthony Putnam, who was a protege of Frank Lloyd Wright and was a member of the Taliesin Architects. So he concepted this carpet, and it's gone through a couple iterations since the original one, but the OG carpet had this like bright gold background with red and green and orange accents. And the designer, Putnam, he argued that it was meant to bring warmth to Wisconsin's icy winters. And right, there's a nice little story there. It had this like really dense pattern on it, which some people described as like hot air balloon they're just kind of like these orbs floating around. But it drew inspiration from the Monona Terraces, the building's arches, and the ginkgo leaf. So that's my pitch for Monona Terrace.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I'm so glad you picked that one. I was somewhat recently there for the YWCA Racial Justice Summit, which they typically hold it there every year. And of course, the rooftop is incredible. I remember I was sitting by the windows inside looking out at the lake, just thinking, man, I feel like more people should really get to experience this. And there's this like stunner the bathrooms on the side are like, I'm like, is anyone seeing this? Incredible. Right. But hilariously, my take on the carpet is some of it to me, I was like, this feels like the Stanley Hotel from The Shining.
100%. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I can just imagine a kid in a big wheel, going up and down the halls of Monona Terrace, and then seeing a pair of creepy twins in the distance. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Dense geographic patterns. Like,
Yep.
I'm kind of like, what's happening in here too?
They should do like a reenactment for Halloween or something. They should do like a Shining exposition.
I think that'd be successful.
Right? I think Madison would love that.
I love it. And I feel like we've got another Frank on the list.
Yeah, let me be frank. I'm going to continue the Frank Lloyd Wright love with the building that was actually built before 1990, so there's no asterisk.
Someone followed the
required
rules.
I'm new here. But the first Unitarian Society building in Shorewood Hills on University Bay Drive, which Wright designed in 1946. He was a member of that church. His parents, I think, were one of the founders of it. Then it was built in 1951 by Marshall Erdman, and I guess I read members of the congregation actually dragged the stones there themselves to help build it. So it was, definitely a congregational
Group effort.
Yeah, exactly. They put their all into it. And what I love about it, and it's also a building I don't know if as many people have been to compared like Monona Terrace, because there's so much going on there. While this is a functioning church, although I've been there for like various meetings and things like that. And it's a building, it's a beautiful building, and you know right away that it's a Frank Lloyd Wright building, and you know right away that it's a church. It's got this incredible like instead of doing a steeple, there's this big prow in front of it, like a big triangle that's been variously described as like the prow of a ship, or like a plow cutting through the prairie, or even somebody said it's like two hands in prayer. It's just, I mean, it's really awe-inspiring. And then you go inside and it's got all those Frank Lloyd Wright touches, a lot of natural wood and stone, kind of these low overhangs and these big airy spaces. So somebody said if you're getting a little bored with the sermon, you can kind of look at nature and stuff. But also it sort of, but also kind of connects, like, I guess I'd say the spiritual world and the natural world. So it's such a cool building. And I think we're so lucky to have it. And you know, like with so many of Wright's designs, it apparently just completely changed the course of how you design churches in the 20th century. So that would be my pick.
It's excellent. I mean, honestly, the spiritual considerations and nature. Have you guys been to Taliesin? We're not going deep, but we went for the show.
I never have.
Oh, we should go back. But it's just like, that's part of his architecture style, right? Is like basically feeling more like your architecture is not so disparate from the earth, but it comes from it. So God, I love that, the ship and the hands. And I'll go to my old pick, which is kind of a type of place that I would pray to. Science Hall is my old building. It's my favorite building ever. And considering our criteria, my pick is well within the confines for old. It was opened in 1888.
Whoa.
So, boom shakalaka.
You win.
Yeah, we're taking a deep dive. And so Science Hall, if you don't know it, it's on UW-Madison's campus, located on North Park Street and the intersections of Langdon and Observatory Drive. And if you go over there, you'll see it because it's massive and red. I want to right away say it's not another massive and red castle-looking building that is called the Red Gym and endearingly referred to as Bowser's Castle. It's Science Hall, and you can know that because it literally says Science Hall in the front. Like there are letters, big letters, so you can't miss it. You might have heard of us talking about it for Halloween. If you caught that, you know, they do have some history. It was once just the Sciences building, shocker with the name. So they also studied like anatomy and physiology. So there's some, you know, rumors about cadavers being there and haunting it, whatever. But that's not why I'm bringing it up. I bring it up because it is freaking gorgeous. If I could marry a building, this would be it. It's a weird thing to say, but it's holy to me. It's have you guys have both seen it?
Oh, of course. I used to have classes there. Like, it is just so, it's not massive, but I do think it is awe-inspiring. It reigns over you.
Yeah, it strikes a nerve. The outside is crazy. It's got like, it's this big, bright red brick building. It looks like a castle. It's called Romanesque Revival style. And they have 16 brick chimneys. And then when you get inside, like that's just it's just like so dreamy. So you have to walk up these huge stone steps. And then the doorway has this big arch. And the doorway above it like has this gorgeous stained glass windows. So once you walk in, it's a real vibe, and you kind of do feel like you're being sent into the 19th century. So you walk up the steps. There's this old slow elevator, by the way, slow. Again, if you're any students listening, you already know this. In the middle, and then this amazing staircase that is just has this wrapping sort of like, like metal rails along it that are just really gorgeous. And there's just so much texture to this building. It's a very historic building. It's on the National Historic Registry because it's not the very first, but one of the first buildings in the country to be constructed of all masonry and metal materials. So like wood was only used in the window and door frames. And it might be the only one still existing of this nature. So it's just something to see. If you haven't been in there, its distinct look from the outside and the inside is from the masonry, the bricks, the stone, and the tile. I pulled a quote from UW Geography's website that says Science Hall presents itself with dignity, strength, and boldness. And I'm like, there you go. Point blank, it's a banger.
She does. I love that. And you might see a ghost.
Yeah, you might become friends with a friendly ghost. Well, to my love, Science Hall, this is your moment. This is your moment to shine. Before we dive into more must-see buildings, let's take a quick break.
This holiday season, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond the moment they open it. There's the sound of them unboxing super soft Lululemon loungewear. And then, there's the sound of them slipping into deep recovery mode after every workout. With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. Open the moment. Shop now at lululemon.com.
Blinds.com is kicking off the savings early with Black Friday mega deals all month long. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can even handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for just one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Get up to 45% off site-wide and a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, we're back. And now we're talking new buildings. Haley.
Okay, so once again, I am kind of playing by the rules and kind of not. Rob is rolling
you
his
set
eyes.
them for us.
Joke's on you.
Joke's on you. XOXO Gossip Girl. Sorry.
So I did this last time that we had this conversation, and I'm kind of doing it again. So I'm bringing y'all over to the north side. Last time that we had this conversation, I talked about the Zippy Lube over at Sherman Avenue, which was a car service station and is now a coffee and donuts restaurant and fried chicken, and they're super awesome. Go check it out. We're still staying over on the north side this time, but I'm taking y'all over to North Street, which is another fun remodel that opened its doors quite recently. So we're gonna say that this counts as a new building. I think that if you looked at the old building and you looked at the new building, you literally would not recognize these two as the same. It's over at 557 North Street over at Commercial Avenue. And so this building was formerly a biotech research office, and it was just this kind of weird cinder block in the middle of the road that no one knew what was going on inside of it. And from this Cap Times article that our dear friend Lindsay Christians wrote, right around the time of 9/11, people were hanging out at the Tip Top Tavern across the street late at night, and they were just very suspicious of this building, and they were suspicious of these unmarked trucks that were parking in front of this building, and there was a big fence around it, and so they kept calling the cops on it to be like, what's going on in here? And eventually the police had to issue a statement that just said, quote, once again, 557 North Street is not a terrorist facility.
They're like, what's going on, police? We already know. You can't know. Mind your business.
Literally, they were like, what the heck is going on? And now enter North Street, which is just the name of the collective that has moved in. And if you guys don't remember, North Street is comprised of Youngblood Beer Company, Bloom Bakery, and Cafe Domestique. And they are holding it down now in Eakin Park and just doing some awesome stuff. The way that they have revamped this building, it's just amazing. Like, there's murals on all sides. It's gone from suspected terrorist house to like just this lovely, bright and inviting space. And they've got this awesome outdoor site that folks can grab drinks at. I always see people walking their dogs over there. It's a very kid-friendly spot. So yeah, shout out to North Street. Maybe I should have just made a category for like redevelopments, because that could have been a whole thing in itself.
I would say, even if they did experiment on the kids from Stranger Things in that building before, it's such a great space now.
Well, just like look the other way.
Yeah.
Those kids are old enough to have a beer at Youngblood now, I think, right?
They deserve one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great space. That outdoors is so fun in the summer. And all times of day. Like, you can just go there. You just go there and work, or just hang out with friends, and it's an all day treasure. Yeah.
I love that. Speaking of kids.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes. I mean, it was so exciting to drive on East Wash and see the new Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra's building under construction, because there's that big swoop, and I was like, oh man, that is going to be so cool. And it certainly is. It opened in April, this $33 million building. And of course, like the front of it, that big sort of curved swoop is supposed to kind of remind people of like the curve of a cello or a violin or other musical instruments like that. But then you've got those windows in front, those long, narrow windows with the breaks, which reminds me of like sheet music in a way, like the notes up and down.
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's just my imagination or whatever, but I
love it.
It looks so cool. Yeah. And then inside, I mean, it's amazing that like WISO, like they practiced in the bowels of the Humanity Building for decades, and they've gone from that to this incredible space with like 3 orchestra halls and all these practice spaces and all these spaces where like people can collaborate, and the acoustics, of course, are just phenomenal there. They make sure that like every hall sounds fantastic, and even though you got all these windows facing East Wash, none of that sound comes in. So, I mean, I just think it's a real credit to the city that we've got this great new building devoted to young musicians and young artists, and kind of showing them like, you guys are valuable to us, and here's a physical representation of how much you are. So it just seems like such, kind of like the church, it's such an inspiring piece of architecture that I'm really proud that we have it.
I agree. And we got the opportunity to speak with them after they launched that and opened the space. So if you guys want to hear more about that, go find that conversation on our website for sure.
I love that we have at least one nice looking building on East Wash.
Slap.
What's yours, Bianca? What's your good new building?
Yeah, it's definitely a newer building, and it's got something in common with all of your new picks: a ton of glass. The Discovery Building at UW opened back in 2010. That houses the Wisconsin Institute of Discovery, and why I'm calling all my picks bangers, it's a banger. It's probably more appropriate for the orchestra building. But WID is located on the corners of University Ave, North Orchard, and Campus Drive. And it's like right across from Union South. You will see it if you're on University. And it's this massive glass beauty, 40,000 square feet. I know I said Science Hall was massive, but this is actually massive.
True.
A big building housing big brains. So it brings UW's interdisciplinary research to life, basically a home to twin research institutes, the private Mortgage Institute for Research and the public Wisconsin Institute for Discovery. So, like they're doing private-public collaborations to find breakthroughs and discoveries that advance health and well-being. I just fell in love with this building the first time I walked in. I mean, I think it's maybe just who I am that I feel comfortable being able to see everything. Like, I'm not going into a cement cinder block, the opposite of what North Street was. I know exactly what I'm walking into. And check this, y'all. It has trees inside.
It does. It's beautiful. It's so lush and so pretty. It's like modern, but also very natural. I do love it in there. They've got do they still have that little cafe in there?
The Aldo Leopold Cafe. Of
there
course,
it is.
From Baraboo. Love our pioneer and our preservationist there, conservationist. Yeah, so I just wanted to shout out the UW Discovery Institute. Also because when they early opened up, I was exploring the space and walked accidentally. I'm not recommending anyone do this, but they have glass doors as well. And I opened the door and went down steps and realized I'm not supposed to be there. And I saw all these people in white coats and I was just like, oh, the work of science being done. Also, the glass, just some of the sort of art and design in the space reminds me of like the DNA discoveries around that and genetics. Yeah, because they've got big like metal sculptures in this space that are spiral shaped. So that place is definitely really exciting. Man, okay. Well, we've talked about our favorite old buildings, our favorite new buildings. Our last category, our wild cards. Haley, what you got for your wild card?
Alrighty, I'll keep it quick. I love this one. Was really hard because there are so many buildings I wanted to talk about. But the one that I really wanted to talk about is Machinery Row, which is over on Willie Street. It's pretty much just like it's the start of Willie Street or it's the end of Willie Street, depending on how you look at it, right? Right off of that curve of John Nolan Drive. And Machinery Row, it's this long brick commercial. It literally takes up half a mile. And it was built in stages between 1898 and 1914. And it used to house businesses that wanted access to rail depots because many of the businesses in there were distributing like agricultural machinery. So hence like machinery in the name. And it's literally like a big castle on the corner, which I think is really cool. And I think it's also really cool that the building across the street too, that houses Hotel Ruby Marie, is like kind of similar. It's just like these two corners of Madison castles, and it's really fun. And back in 1982, the block was added to the National Register of Historic Places. So it's just a cool spot. And now that's like where Sardine is, and there's the bike shop in there, and it's just got a lot of cool stuff. And there's also like a couple of plaques inside of the building that talk about the history there. So that's one of my favorites. That's my wild card.
Gorgeous. We've got a theme coming with all this masonry, and the turn of the century buildings. I can throw mine in, which is Garver Feed Mill.
That's a good one.
That's my wild card. It's another turn of the century, 19th century building constructed in 1906. So it was like after, but apparently it was a sugar beet processing plant. That was its original history. The United States Sugar Company used it for sugar beet processing, and they called it a 200 square foot sugar castle. And then it was later, bought by James Garver to be a feed mill. And that, in terms of, agriculture and supporting those efforts, and that feed mill closed in 1997. And then that space was sitting empty for dang near 20 years. The new Garver is gorgeous. Began construction in 2017, officially opened in 2019. So it's been around for about 5 years, and all the tenants in there are killing it. The space is all that exposed brick, similar to some of that history and Machinery Row. So I love that building.
Yeah, it is beautiful. It's crazy how much they've done with it, and what a true revival that was. And I know that was a really big project for the city to get off the ground, and I'm really happy with that. And now we have another Ian's, right? That's what the world needs.
And Rob, we'll let you finish us off.
Well, my favorite building in town is the Barrymore Theater. I used to live a couple blocks away on First Avenue. Used to walk over and see shows all the time. What I love about it, it's a great funky theater. From the outside, you've got that sort of mix of Spanish colonial style architecture, but then you've got that, that iconic turquoise dome that's like Italian Renaissance. But it's also, it's very much a neighborhood theater. It's owned by the Neighborhood Revitalization Association. The theater dates back to 1929, but they bought it in the 80s. And the fact that it's owned by the community, that it's a place where you might see shows, you might see movies, you might see community talks. It's just so funky and cool inside with the masks that hang in the lobby. And of course, the twinkling lights on the ceiling in the theater. When my daughter and I went there recently to see Jeff Tweedy, she remembered that from when she was a little kid, and we went to those United Way bluegrass shows that they used to have. And she, that's imprinted in your mind, those twinkling lights. And it really is very Madison to me, because it's this cool space that's very connected to the neighborhood around it. There are houses literally backing up into the parking lot in the back. So yeah, that would be my, the one thing I would say was the bathrooms are incredibly cramped. They are built for people, much skinnier people than exist now, I guess. So, but other than that, I wouldn't want to change it too much. Even that's part of the charm.
It's so charming. Oh my goodness. We had so many good ones we didn't even get to them. We've got honorable mentions. We've got Frank Lloyd Wright's in town. We've got Mansion Hill. We've got a bunch of weirdos. You know what? This is already our second time doing a buildings conversation. I think we're going to have to have another one.
For sure.
Absolutely. I got so many more on my list. I'm ready.
Well, stay tuned, y'all. That was Rob Thomas, our newsletter editor, Haley Sperling, our executive producer, and me listing our takes on some of Madison's most interesting buildings, old to new. What did we miss? Did we skip your favorite? Let us know. Leave us a voicemail at 608-318-3367 or send us an email at madison@citycast.fm. Do you feel how I feel about Science Hall? Or were some of our picks that's so overrated? Let us know, because we are definitely going to have to feature more buildings. We did not even scratch the surface. That's all for today, here on City Cast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who points out the architectural features of buildings whenever you're hanging out together. See you back here tomorrow with more stories from around the city. Until then, stay cozy.